Shadows of Rose is the new Kingdom Hearts DLC for Resident Evil Village. This DLC expansion finds us with a now 16-year-old Rosemary Winters as she journeys to rid herself of her vague moldy powers. Will we learn more about her as a person? Will the Winters saga wrap up with a solid ending, answering all of our burning questions? Well, no. But it might be good anyways, so let's talk about it. Within the first 30 seconds, an infinitely better premise for a DLC game is brought up. Rose meets up with Kay, a member of Chris's Hound Wolf squad, upon his request. Rose offhandedly mentions that Chris has been bugging her to join his operation, but she refused because she thinks it's too tough. What? Rose being mentored and trained to be a member of Hound Wolf would be an awesome story to tell, all while simultaneously creating room for future games or cameos. And you could still tie in the mold plotlines that we actually do get in Shadows of Rose. Just have the mission be to retrieve a remnant of Mutamycete. Or something, I don't know. It's a win-win. But let's focus on what actually happens in this story. Through some dialogue, we discover that Rose has been the subject of bullying in school due to her powers. Kay tells her he has discovered that Miranda was researching a purifying crystal that could completely remove mold from the host's body. What does a crystal have to do with mold? Not entirely sure, but hey, let's just roll with it. Without question, Rose follows Kay back to a lab where he shows her a sample of Mutamycete that is being held for study. He explains that anyone that died near the Megamycete had their memories and, for a lack of a better term, their consciousness absorbed into the mold hive mind. Rose, being mold, can enter this consciousness and traverse the memories inside. This will help her find the purifying crystal, which at this point I assumed would be a real tangible object, but I guess not really. But sort of? Stay tuned. In Rose goes. She wakes up in the recycled environment of Castle Dimitrescu. Here she discovers a bunch of copies of herself. That's weird. Then the copies get their faces eaten by face eaters. They're actually pretty creepy. They make some god-awful noises and try to suck your face like a Dementor from Harry Potter. Rose escapes and runs into an evil version of the Duke. Don't worry guys, this is not the Duke that we all know and love. He sends more face eaters after Rose. She escapes with the help of a weird glowing light that can make words on the walls and manifest items for Rose to use. Seems pretty busted. Rose calls this thing a guardian angel, and they decide on the name Michael. It's very obviously some form of Ethan Winters guiding his daughter, but we'll get to that later. Rose needs to collect 3 masks to get the purifying crystal. Auntie Duke tries to stop her with a bunch of face eaters, but Michael Ethan guides her to power amplifiers that allow her to kill mold cores and stun enemies. This is the almighty power of Rose Winters. Needless to say, she gets all the masks, but the Auntie Duke tricked her. The crystal was a fake used to lure out the best roses for him to enjoy as sport. Rose gets sent to a dungeon where she kills a big, many-faced face eater, but Duke cheats and tries to kill her anyways. Rose jumps into the abyss where she enters a different stratum of the realm of consciousness. In the new stratum, she finds herself at House Beneviento, and much like in the main game, she is also stripped of her possessions and forced to do a series of creepy puzzles by some voice that comes through the radio. The puzzles reveal some details about the extent of Rose's bullying as she was growing up. Although there are some legitimately creepy moments here, such as the mother mannequins chasing you when you're not looking, this segment is pretty tedious. At the end, to no one's surprise, you discover the voice that's been leading you on belongs to Evelyn. Somehow, possibly through Ethan's memories of her like we see in Village, Evelyn resides within the realm of consciousness. Rose ends up overpowering a jealous Evelyn, but the latter strikes out once again to finish off Rose. Ethan, now taking on his actual human form, interrupts and saves Rose, pushing her farther into the consciousness. Rose wakes up in the village and realizes that Michael has been her dad all along. She wanders into the village and falls down a big hole. She discovers the Black God, or Megamycete, is producing the clones of her. Further on, she encounters a research lab that sheds some light on a few things, namely, that the Rose clones and Bad Duke are all just manufactured copies using memories of people. Rose finds the real purifying crystal, or is anything real here? Anyways, the crystal sucks out all her mold spores and does away with her powers. Rose has a little time to celebrate as Mother Miranda appears. Big surprise, I know. Miranda tells Rose she lured her to the realm to weaken her and then use her as a vessel for Eva, her dead daughter. This lady is obsessed. Ethan butts in and tells Miranda to get bent. He urges Rose to run. As Rose goes to leave, Ethan is absolutely getting bodied by Miranda. Rose says fuck that and does the most predictable thing in the game. Probably something everyone saw coming from the very first cutscene. She shatters the crystal and sucks up all the mold juice again. This just works, by the way. Rose proceeds to smack Miranda around like a rag doll. Together with Ethan, Rose uses the power of friendship and mold to kill the old bag for good. Maybe. I don't know anymore. Ethan and Rose say their heartfelt goodbyes, emphasis on wedding ring. Rose wakes up in the real world and discovers she has the wedding ring. Somehow. Don't question it. I assume this is the same way the memory of the purifying crystal would somehow affect Rose's real body as well. I don't have all the answers. The final scene is the ending cutscene of RE Village where Rose visits Ethan's grave, indicating that Shadows of Rose is set beforehand. Overall, the game is neither short nor long. A first playthrough will take you a few hours to complete. I played on hardcore right away and found it to be fairly challenging, if not outright stupid, during some of the segments. The game can be legitimately spooky in some sections, but then turn around and be absolutely ridiculous next. Almost all the environments and bosses are completely recycled from Village, and while I know this is common practice for DLC, I would have enjoyed exploring at least a little of some new area. Weaponry is very limited in this game. Unless I miss some super secret area, you'll only be equipped with a handgun and a shotgun. Granted, that's all you'll really need, but variety is the spice of life, or so they say. I assume that Rose's powers would make up for the lack of gunplay. Ooh, was I wrong. I'm not sure exactly what powers Rose has in the real world. From what I could tell, reading the various papers you can find in the game, all she did was leak milky fluid from her palms. Not much of a superpower if you ask me. Her powers in the realm of consciousness involve mold removal and temporarily slowing enemies. Again, this is all fine and dandy for the purpose of the game, but they're not exactly what I'd refer to as superpowers unless you're a custodian. To be clear, I don't want a Resident Evil game with a superpowered protagonist, but if they were including them anyway, why'd they have to be so bland? The plot of the DLC isn't bad per se, but it's definitely not my style. I don't dislike Rose as a character, but everything about her and the story were completely predictable. And while I'm glad that Rose got some closure regarding her father, it didn't make much sense from the get-go that she would know so little about her dad as a person, considering Mia and Chris should have had plenty of time to bring her up to speed. The idea that the entire game takes place in some dreamlike world is also pretty underwhelming, even if it was hinted at in Village. Resident Evil has always mostly been grounded in reality. When I think of subconscious surfing, I mostly lean towards the evil within, not Biohazard. I know that over the years, the term virus and mold have sort of become catch-alls for explaining crazy shit in Resident Evil, but I feel this game in particular takes it more towards that supernatural line than any previously. I guess my overall takeaway for this DLC is that I found it underwhelming. That's not to say I didn't have any fun, because I did and I don't regret playing it. I just think there was some wasted potential is all. And we definitely would have fared much better with the junior Houndwolf member story. What do you guys think? Did it meet your expectations? Do you think Rose will end up becoming an official member of Houndwolf regardless? Or will she have a lucrative career as a professional mold removal service? Let me know down in the comments below. Until next time, guys.